Hello there, Jeanette and Kevin Rayborn here again. We're independent Optavia health coaches, and we are here to talk to you a little bit more about element 3, which in my opinion, and I think in Dr. A's as well, it's where the real work starts.
That's true. And we went through element 1 and element 2. Those are meant for individuals to recognize and understand what their why is, what they want to accomplish, and why those goals are super important to them. But now it's really where the rubber meets the road. It's time to actually start working on creating habits. And that's a real power in that, to create these habits. And you're supposed to do that in small incremental steps, so it's not too much at one time, to create that for lifelong change. And there's a real power in that as well. There's a power in having the ultimate control over your outcome and what your goals, to get to your goals.
Right.
You know, and what are habits? Habits are things that we have done to create so we can actually do certain tasks without having to think. And it just becomes ingrained and becomes a natural thing for you. And once you can ingrain some of these habits day to day, your goals become much easier.
Absolutely. And by committing to creating new habits, you're also just taking ownership and radical responsibility for your goals and your next steps in this journey. So congratulations on that. So like he said, habits are just what we make that become automatic things that we do. Good news, you are already on the road, because it takes about 66 days to create a habit. You're on the road to making eating 6 times a day a habit. It's not going to take long at all. I promise you, before you know it, your stomach's going to growl and you're going to go, wow, it was 2.5 hours. So it becomes a clock of its own. 66 days. Make it a game. This is a little tip, pro tip. Make it a game. Some people will make a check off chart. Some people will mark it on their calendar. Some people will, just write it in their notes or something, just to say, I did this 66 days in a row, and you'll be amazed at how automatic it becomes even after 30. Okay. So we're going to work on that. Next up, we have a little concept called structural tension.
Yes, and this was a really big thing for us when we kind of sat down and analyzed our own situation. The element 3 talks about creating a structural tension chart. And simply, there's 3 components to it. You have to really know what your current reality is. And you have to be honest with yourself, honest with your partner, or whatever your situation might be, to know where you are. What is my current health status? Then you have to really be clear on the goal, or where you want to be once you reach that goal. And we love this little analogy about using a rubber band and the structural tension and the success and outcomes of those goals. If I have a really good understanding of where I am in my current reality, and I really know what my goal is going to be, and I'm very passionate about that goal and about that why and why I'm trying to get there, that secondary choice in the middle is going to be very structured, and you're much more likely to get there. So that structural tension is very, very, and this is for anything. It doesn't have to do with just health. It can be for any situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Clear vision. Clear vision with your goals is the game changer. I promise you. And I've talked about that both videos before this. And so with your why. So let's talk about leading from the future and acting in the now for just a moment, because I do love that principle that we've started to live by. And that's essentially the meaning of structural tension, right? You're going to go to your goals from where you are, and that space in between, you're going to ask your future self, what would my future self that has met my health goals do in this situation at this party? That's a really great way to, just make it through decision making. Now let's talk about some really simple habit loops that we've developed over time, and with clients that we've worked with have developed, just that are super simple. And I want you to understand that the minimal action is the non-negotiable action. Something that literally you really have no excuse for skipping in your day. So maybe some excuses, but very few excuses that would keep you from doing one wall push-up, right? Okay, so that's the example in the book. Dr. A talks about having the lady he worked with who wanted to be able to get on the floor with her grandkids or pick up her grandchild. And he said, let's start with one wall push-up before you go to the bathroom. If you could do more, great. Within a few weeks, she was doing them at a desk, and then she was picking up her grandchild. So here's some other ones. A glass of water by your bedside. Get your hydration started earlier. It's better for you to have water first thing in the morning anyway. So if you could just agree that I'm going to drink, even if it's just a small glass, a glass of water as soon as I wake up, then that is one small habit loop. Cue, wake up, drink my water. The reward is I am getting my hydration started early, right? So the next one would be to put a Post-it note on your bathroom mirror where you brush your teeth to read your why. The cue would be, it's right there. I'm brushing my teeth. There it is. I'm going to read that. That's going to help me on this journey if I read it every day. Another one would be, once a day, I'm going to sit down and write 3 things that I am grateful for. You guys, I can tell you from experience personally that there is nothing more powerful than picking up that habit. And then finally, as far as our Habits of Health transformation system goes, I would say it's really great if you have the books. Make it a cue that, before your shower, you're going to sit down and at least open the book. That's a true story. There was a client that said, I am going to have a 66-day chart in my book, and the minimal action is going to be that I sit down and I open it and close it and go get my shower. And she did that. And before you know it, she was chapters into her book without even thinking about it. Okay. So just minimal action that is non-negotiable. That should be where you start. And so moving on to some other things that we notice at this point in people's journey, right?
Right. And I think if you start talking about the value of what element 3 brings to the table, you kind of talk about how our components go into play. Now, when we first talked, we talked about the 4 components of our community, coaching, the habits of health, and also our fuelings, right? So when we first talk about the analogy of like the wheels on the car, and each component makes up 25% of the whole thing. If you just use the fuelings, if you just do that, our program will work. But that is a diet, guys. And really, you're not creating a habit at that time of really using our program to the fullest. So you must get into a habit of using and getting into the community, whether it's getting onto the Facebook page, whether it's getting with your local community through your coaches, working with your coaches. And that's a big one. I mean, how many clients have we had that were not very successful long term because they really just didn't lean into the coaches?
Right. I actually wanted to include this today because this is historically where we see people stop getting on the phone with us.
Right.
And so, and that's so important to your journey.
And then the habits of health. These elements that are put before you are really where the heart work comes into play and the personal development about why our nutrition has not been great at some points in our life. So if you don't lean into that habit of getting into these elements on a consistent basis, where will your journey be? So, and then it comes to the fuelings.
Right. And on that note, the one thing we want to caution people from is staying bored, right? Do not stay bored. The worst thing in the world is for someone to say, Jeanette, I can't do this anymore. If I see any more chicken and broccoli, I'm going to die, right? So we have a few tips. The number one thing is use a variety of fuelings. Don't use all shakes or all bars or all, crunchy things. Use a variety throughout your day. And mix it up. Try different ways of preparing them. I, for one, am a potato soup girl instead of mashed potatoes or the waffle that a lot of people love, right? So choose different ways of preparing your fuelings. Your coach and your community on Facebook can totally help you with those ideas.
Yes.
And then, of course, recipes. Guys, you might have been keeping it super simple up until now. A lot of people do in their first few weeks. But don't get bored and don't think that food can't be yummy. It isn't meant to be entertainment and isn't meant to be a coping skill, but it is meant to be good for you and can be delicious as well. So get out there, use the recipes. Our recipes are fantastic, and don't let yourself be bored.
Now, the challenge and the homework this week is to actually send us what your habit loop and what you're committed to working on for the next 66 days. Because 66 days creates a habit, guys. So talk to us about what habit you're going to be working on to get the structural tension together, and tell us what it is.
Thank you and have a great day.